Hey, Seth Miranda here for Adorama TV with the new Profoto A10. So what is this about? We've had the Profoto A1, the A1x, and now the A10, which is the newest rendition within the Speedlight lineup from Profoto. But it fits in there pretty well because we're talking about the same quality that we got in the A1 and A1x, which, by the way, should probably be seeing a price drop now that this is out, the new evolution of the Speedlight from Profoto. But there's the B10 and B10 Plus. And what did those add that the B1 and B1x didn't have? Bluetooth. So that's what the A10 has, which means we're fleshing out that system, hence A10, B10, B10 Plus. But what does the Bluetooth give us? Well, it gives us integration to a mobile app. And I know what you're thinking, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But what that really means is that we don't just have the ability to trigger the light or change the power of the light. We have the actual interface that's inside of our light, as if we walked up to that light to control it completely, from changing the channels, the groups. I can even zoom the head of the A10 right from where I'm standing, which is great. If you're a speedlight shooter, you know what I'm talking about. You put them in weird places, you tape them under tables, you stick them behind books or whatever. They're in the scene, you don't want to disturb them. You can fully control it from a mobile device, which is fantastic. I don't have to move myself. I don't have to disturb my set. I can just do what I got to do and get what I need out of the light. So the A1 gave us great light with the Fresnel lens, real even, clean fall off, consistent, absolutely dependable triggering and consistency with the power and color coming out of the light. Same thing with the A10. The lithium-ion battery that gives us a long life to our shooting, as well as fast recycle, which was the big thing for me, which is why I actually went all in on this system and have 5 A1s in my kit that you have seen all over this channel over the last 2 years. I took them around the world. So I really do rest a lot in this system. And now they just added more to it by giving me more connectability to it through a mobile device. All right, so I'm gonna try this thing out today with my model Skyla, of course, socially distant. Usually I give you a high five, we've seen that, but. All right, let's go figure out what we're gonna do with this light and how we're gonna use this space. Since it's the A10, I do have a B10 back here, and I have a gel on it, so I'm actually gonna light up this back wall, but not interfere with the neon light that I have here. So there's a little bit of a balancing act on that. I also put a chocolate gel on that light so that it can have a really stark difference to the pink light. And the other weird little thing you're gonna see is we're gonna get a drop shadow backwards from the neon light, giving it a little more depth and dimension here to the scene. Let me get into setting up our key light, which will be the A10 itself. So, the A10 is pretty interesting as far as the speedlight goes because it has an onboard constant light source. And you guys have seen me use this for shutter drag techniques with a constant light and using it to create some nice ghosting effects. But today I want to show you guys that one of the cool things about having it, especially when you're using a modifier like this halo deflector, you can actually see where on the deflector you are concentrating the source. So I could have just this area of this 3-foot reflector being used, or I can make the light softer by using more of it by zooming out the head. This is something you get with speedlights that you don't get with studio strobes that I tend to find as a plus. Now, I want to keep this really tight because I don't want this light to spill past Skyla and affect this wall. I want this wall to only be lit by my B10, and I only want the light coming from this part of the wall up coming from the neon sign. This is how we build a set, right? Now, I have this on a Tether Tools master articulating arm. I have the halo on another articulating arm with a super clamp on the same stand, which means I can literally move this whole setup wherever I need it. With Skyla, I'm actually gonna have the light brush past in front of her to the floor. That way I'm ensuring that I'm not gonna have any spill and bleed onto the wall. We're separating our zones, right? Zone 1, zone 2. I can play games with the ratio and the exposure, but I'm already not too concerned with that because all I wanna do with that backlight is illuminated enough so it doesn't look like a blasted light and not over illuminated to a point where we lose the saturation on the gel. So let's get shooting. I'm going to be on the floor pretty much shooting at between 24 and 35 millimeters on this Nikon D850 with a 24 to 120 f4 lens. And the reason I'm doing it so wide is because I want to get close into the frame enough to get all of Skyla and also get the time to play words back there in one shot. So another thing I'm going to do in order to keep the light central to Skyla is use the magnetic modifier system from Profoto, where I can use the bounce card, and I'm also going to put on the diffuser dome. And I'm doing that because while I'm centralizing, I should say, like really focusing on the light in this area, I still want it to be scattered and diffused, so when it's coming through and hitting Skyla, it still is more of a hard light source, but still diffused light source. Remember, diffusion doesn't mean softer. Diffusion means we're scattering the light to break up specular highlights. I'm not going to see hard white spots showing up from this setup now. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do is, since I know I'm going to be brushing this light past her, we're going to get pretty hard drop shadows, but I'm doing that on purpose. Skyla has killer bone structure. I love the orbital bones on this girl. Not to mention we have, I know it's crazy, right? You got a good skull, kid. The jawline and everything like that, we can really sculpt it out. That's what our key light does. Our key light is meant to sculpt our subject, and our fill light is meant to adjust the density of those shadows. So I already know I'm going to start out with a shadowy figure with her, and then I'm going to use my older A1 on camera with the power pretty far down, only set to about 3, to just fill in just the shadows on Skyla and get a nice clean fill light without affecting the entire shot. And it's also on axis with the lens, so it won't be changing the shape of my key light. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to get low, right? I'm laying down on this floor. And this is a pretty tame setup, right? Think about it. All I'm doing is lying on the floor. This light isn't that far away from me. But think of it this way. It's all the way up there. Every time I change something, I would have to get up, change my posture, disrupt the scene. She'd have to kind of get out of the mental state she was in during the flow of the work. And that affects everything. That also affects the final image. Not to mention I got a light behind her, and that's another thing. I'd have to go stop everything I'm doing, put my camera down, and go change something on the back of the light. Because remember, the app isn't just like a trigger system that has power in it. It's as if you're walking up to the light in the palm of your hand. It's the exact same menu system. I can do everything I need that's inside these lights right here in my iPhone. And think about it this way. What if I was in other situations, like a modifier that the light was inside that's hard to reach, or it was across the room, or how many times have you had an assistant or were an assistant where you can't hear what they're trying to tell you to change the group or the channel of the light because it was set wrong before it was put into play. All these things happen. All this does is add to the ability of the A10, B10, and B10 Plus system. It makes it that much more easy to work with, that much more versatile, that much faster, which, as we all know, is key, right? All right, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna start shooting. You ready? Okay. Beautiful. All right, so we got some really quick, clean shots, used our environment like I said, but just so you guys have an idea of what I was doing when I pulled out the phone for the app, actually I left it right on my tether just as an extra like control center. So the back light is a B10, but I can't see it, and I also forgot to put the sound on for the ready alert, so I knew when it was recycled. I wasn't worried about that, but it is kind of like a safety blanket for me after all these years of hearing it. So you just go into remote control, I see the B10, I hit the cog at the top, I went into advanced at the bottom over here, I went into the ready signal and I went from off to sound, and you could do sound and dim, but like I said, this app is basically like walking right up to the light and having the interface in the palm of your hand without having to disturb your setup, mess with the chemistry that was going on with your model, all sorts of things. Every time you stop and reset, it changes the image in the end. So that takes care of the B10, but what was I doing here with the A10 as my key light? Well, just to give you an idea of what I was talking about light ratio wise, this was set to 8 and I pushed it through a 2-stop diffuser on this Lasolite Halo compact deflector, but I also had the on-camera light. So if this is at 8 and I'm losing 2 stops here, that means it was actually at about 6. And the light on my camera I set to 3, which means it was 3 stops away from my key light. That means that my fill light was never going to overtake my key light or match it 1-to-1. And as I moved back and forth, it actually changed the exposure of the on on-camera light. If you think about it, the closer I got to my model, the brighter the exposure off of the on-camera light became, and the same thing going backwards, vice versa. If I moved back, I lessened the exposure on the on-camera light. So I just have to be conscious of that and float between some power on the on-camera light. But either way, that's how I do on-camera fill light. But let's talk about the app for the A10. So I'm going to take off this dome diffuser so you can actually see what's happening. You can see that I had it very localized, very tiny point of source on the halo reflector, meaning that it's kind of like a hard light. But if I wanted to, I could go into the app, hit remote control, click on the A10, click on advanced, and if I go to the zoom, you can actually see in real time that it zooms the head for me. This is beyond having just a trigger. This is having the actual interface of the light in the palm of my hand. I didn't have to worry about anything. If it's in this light in a menu system, I have it right here in the Profoto app. And think about that. This can lead to bigger things going forward in this industry. This just means that this light has Bluetooth, the B10 has Bluetooth, the B10 Plus has Bluetooth, and so does my iPhone. Well, what else has Bluetooth these days? Camera bodies themselves. So personally, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we start seeing Bluetooth technology in the cameras becoming integrated trigger systems instead of needing something outside externally on a shoe or a sync cord or what have you. So I think this is actually a pretty cool evolution of the A1, A1X to the A10. And now you have the speed light option, the B10 250 watt second option, and the B10 Plus 500 watt second option, or a complete system. Mix and match, grow it however you see fit. Personally, I'm a big speed light guy. I like to have a lot of them. Like I said, about 5 A1s in my kit. The B10 is a great addition to this. If you wanted something with a key light and a bunch of fill lights or accent lights, all sorts of things, the possibilities are pretty endless, and now you're just able to connect to them even further. So that's going to do it for me here today. I want to thank Profoto for letting me try out the new A10. And if you guys have any questions for me, hit me with a comment down below. I will try to see you guys down there and answer the best I can. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, and the bell for more videos like this. And by the way, thank you for getting us to 1 million subscribers. I really appreciate it, and so does the entire Adorama family. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time. Later.